You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. Chris Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com, thechrisvossshow.com. Welcome to the big show, my family and friends. The Chris Voss Show, the family that loves you but doesn't judge you, at least not as harshly as your mother-in-law. The show that billionaires, CEOs, entrepreneurs, newsmakers, and the hottest new authors come on to talk about their wares and all the things they think, and they're going to make you smarter. And everyone knows when you're smarter, you're sexier. Who doesn't want to be sexier? Is there anybody in the audience that are like, no, I want to be uglier? No, I'm just kidding. People, don't do that. Anyway, guys, we appreciate you guys coming to the show. As always, 15 years. There are 3 podcasts a weekday, 15 podcasts a week coming at you. If you're not listening to every single one, there will be a test on Saturdays, boys and girls. There'll be a test, and if you fail, I don't know what happens. You can just, whatever, go back and listen to them. You got to have something to do on Sunday. It's kind of boring day. Anyways, we have once again an amazing guest and author on the show. A very touching memoir that I think is going to be moving for you and inspiring for you and take it to a new level. We have a gentleman on the show. He's the author of the latest book called A Cup of Tea on the Commode: My Multitasking Adventures of Caring for Mom and How I Survived to Tell the Tale. Came out May 14th, 2023. Mark Stephen Porro is on the show with us today. He's going to be talking about this book and some of his insights, and I think you're going to love this show. Or you're going to love the show, or you're going to love the story, or love both. And if you don't, or else.
Yeah, really.
There you go. Mark is a New Jersey native, and he earned an industrial design degree from the Ohio State University. After years of agency work, his love of acting led him to Hollywood, where he appeared in dozens of television, film, and stage productions. He also spent his 28 years in Tinseltown entrepreneuring. He started 5 nonprofit companies, but hold the applause, none of them were intended to be. He now lives in I think I know what that's about. He now lives in the south of France, but hold your pity. He is of sound mind and body and chose to suffer in the heart of wine country, where the locals insist his French isn't so bad. That's not what they say behind his back. I'm just kidding. French can be rude. And at least that's what he thinks they're saying. Exactly. See, well, I preempted that, didn't I? Mark is an award-winning designer, writer, director. You dirty Americans. Anyway, French people don't say that, I'm sure. He's written lots of jokes, several screenplays, and 1 award-winning short film. A Cup of Tea on the Commode is a sad, sweet, and funny debut memoir that chronicles his multitasking adventures of filling his mother's last years with love, laughter, and joy. Though not always successful, he came pretty damn close. Welcome to the show, Mark. How are you?
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, all the way from France.
All the way from France, and we should tease out so we can get people to, turn off the audio on the podcast and come to YouTube and watch. You are sitting in your abode there in France, and I believe it's fairly old.
It was built in the 16th century. I've been told it was built around 1540. So wow. King Louis the 13th. Time period, and King Louis XIV apparently actually came to this village.
Wow.
I wasn't here then, so I can't be sure. And we have no video evidence, but I'm going to take their word for it because it helps.
I think I saw
Louis
him.
Was here.
I think I saw him post about it on his TikTok account.
Yeah,
there's some video over there. Yeah,
he's a crazy guy. Was and still is.
There you go. And it's a beautiful thing. It's got a huge arcing brick sort of, I don't want to call it medieval, but I guess it would be, kind of Frenchish.
High ceilings, low floors, and a lot of history. It's just very cool. Even I have a cobblestone street outside. And
oh, wow.
If you just think about all the people that walked up and down, thousands of years, it's just very cool.
Yeah, it's always interesting to me, these older places. You kind of get a feel of the people that pass through them. It feels there's a weird sort of, I don't know, deja vu or something that I always
Or
get when I go
energy or
places.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, energy or something.
I've had a couple of spiritual guys come into this place with their divining rods or just their sixth sense, and they've said all good vibes here. So there
Oh,
weren't
that's
any.
good. You know,
Yeah,
it wasn't like a torture chamber for all the crazy stuff that
right.
had been in medieval times.
But there were other places. The Knights Templar did come here and slaughter a lot of people.
Oh, wow.
Um, uh, yeah, again, that was before my time. So
There you go.
so
Well,
far,
you're not responsible for it legally, then, evidently, according to the
right.
attorneys. So we're good there. So tell us about this book. What motivated you on to write this book?
Well, in 2011, 9 days after my mom's 89th birthday, she just kind of gave up on life. She was very unhappy, and she just it seemed like she just willed herself to die. And my brother called me and said he put her to bed, and the doctor cut off all meds and food, and hospice was called. And I kind of freaked out because 14 years earlier, hospice was called for my dad, and 2 days later he died. So
Yeah.
Mom had 6 kids, and all of us came to, I flew in. I was living in LA at the time, and so I flew in, and we kind of just sat around a bed waiting. And then she kind of snapped out of it. It was a number of weeks without any food or anything. She snapped out of it. And I think she was really, I call it in the book, a silent scream for help. She wanted more love. We had some people in the house that apparently weren't doing such a great job. So all her kids came back and filled the house again with love, and she woke up. And so I decided to kind of take over because I wanted my mother's last years to be happy, and she deserved better. And so I didn't move back right away. Stayed with her for a few months, and then hospice stayed on for a while. And then later in the year, I picked up and moved back. So I moved back into my childhood home at 55 to become a first-time parent to a 89-year-old lady.
Wow. Wow. You and I, and you were a bachelor. This is one of the things that gave you the freedom to be able to do this, right?
Yeah. I mean, I had a business in LA, and I was also an actor, but I was kind of aging out of acting. So the acting career was getting pretty slow. And my business actually was starting to peter out. So I was able to fly back and forth to take care of the business every few months. I was able to do a lot of it remotely. And so 24/7 care is what I took over. So that was my new job, and we had a blast. I mean, there's a lot of I guess sadness in the book because it doesn't end well. But it was 3.5 years that she
oh wow
lived on, and we had a great time. She was a very funny lady, and I inherited some of that humor from both of my parents. And we had, my goal was to make her laugh at least once every day, and a lot of times she made me laugh. So it was pretty cool.
A beautiful story. I was recently watching the Netflix show "Live to 100: Secrets of the Blue Zones," and they talked about one of the zones that they feature in the movies is that one of the reasons that a certain blue zone, as they identified these people were living to be centurions, 100 years old, was they had an intact social system where they didn't throw people away into hospice care. I mean, there's a time where sometimes you need that medical stuff, but they didn't. People weren't going into retirement in loneliness.
Right.
They still had family surrounded them. They had support surrounded them. In fact, the family grew in tight around them the older they got. And there was a study they cited too, that if you put someone in hospice care or put them in a retirement, unless they really find some way to activate and do some things, they die fairly quickly.
Yep.
And like you mentioned, my father never wanted to go into hospice care. He hated doctors. But after a series of small strokes and heart attacks and issues, after one final surgery, he had to go into hospice care just so that he could, recover. And it was going to be probably for 2 weeks to a month. at the most optimist point, but he was gone in 2 days. He was so unhappy, and I think he just gave up because he was like, he wasn't home. He was very upset about it, and he was gone within pretty much 24, 48 hours. And I think he was so heartbroken not to be home with his wife and stuff. And so this is really important for the longevity of our elders. And for too long in this country, we throw people away into hospice care. And so you take over. You have the freedom of a bachelor to take care of your mom. You realize the importance of her life and spending time with her, and you become a hospice caregiver in a way.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Well, what I did is when hospice was there, my younger sister and I stayed pretty much 24/7 with mom and hospice. When they were there, we were really good students. We wanted to learn as much as we could because I didn't know if I was going to take over 24/7 at that point, but I wanted to learn and do as much as we could for mom while she was there because she was doing so well because we were present. So I said, well, nobody's going to give her more TLC than her own kids.
Yeah.
So we jumped in and we learned, and then we shared those tips and tricks with our two of my other siblings. And so we always had someone there. And when I had to go back to California for business, my sister, who also lived in Orange County, actually, but she would fly in, so she would replace me. So it would always be one of her children on duty. And that made a big difference. The hospice nurses actually were lovely. But you have quite a variety coming every day. You don't have the same one. And there was a directive from the main hospice nurse, no food, I guess a little bit of water and stuff, but no food because the doctor said no food. She wants to go, let her go. And so we follow that directive. And then one hospice nurse came in a couple of weeks later, and we got to a point where we knew a couple were breaking the rules. So we'd meet them at the front door and have them read the directive from their boss. And this lady said, yes, that's fine. And she walked right into my mother's room. My mother her eyes were closed most of the time. She walks in, and the lady leans in and says, Genevieve, are you hungry? And my mother's eyes shot open for the first time in weeks. And then this lady accused us of starving our mother to death.
Oh, wow.
And she went nuts with this. And so it was really quite interesting. So we got her to call her supervisor. We said, no, we're not doing this. Is what we've been told. We were following the rules. So this lady broke the rules. She called her supervisor. Her supervisor said, leave. You broke the rules. Get out. Wow. Now I'm thinking, is this a possibility that hospice was wrong and we are in fact starving our mother to death? So I go into her room, just guilt-ridden, and I said, Mom, and she opens her eyes. I said, are you hungry? And she nodded. I said, well, what do you want? She goes, what do you got? Now, these are the first words in weeks. And I said, anything you want. And at this point, it's March, winter. And she says, how about some pumpkin pie? I said, well, it's not really pumpkin pie season, but let me see. So I went out in the living room and I asked my older brother, he lived locally, so he kind of knew where to. I said, see if you can find some pumpkin pies. And he came back within a half hour with 2 fresh pumpkin pies.
There you go.
And this woman just devoured these things. Again, she hasn't eaten in weeks. So she ate pumpkin pie. And then she moved on to sherbet. She was a big sherbet fan. 8 bowls of sherbet a day. That's all she had. All she wanted was sherbet. Wow. And then after that, we got her to switch to something a little better, which was oatmeal, but it was still sugary oatmeal. So she had 8 bowls of oatmeal a day, but she was back. She was sharp. She was awake. She was happy to be alive. And we realized that she's probably riding the biggest sugar high, continuous sugar high in the world.
That's how I want to go out.
She was a type 2 diabetic, but she was doing great and off at that point, off all meds. She was probably on like a dozen meds. And the doctor said, no meds. We didn't add any more meds. She was just on the sugar high and doing great. And then eventually we were able to sneak in some real food. And then she went back to a normal diet once I started cooking all her meals and stuff for her. So we kept the diet pretty healthy after that. And then sherbet for dessert.
There you go. It's hard to become a caretaker. and do it for a long period of time, there's a mental toll that it takes
Yeah.
on you. How did you deal with that?
Well, when my sister and I were learning from hospice, while hospice was there, we took breaks every day. We went out for walks, and we walked around our old neighborhood, which was nice to rediscover our town. It was a small town in northern New Jersey. Ridgewood was just a lovely village. And but when I took over, I figured, I can handle this. This is, I'm a guy. I can do it. Everything's fine. But it creeps up on you.
Yeah.
There was a few times where I snapped at my mom, and I'm not proud of those moments. And she hated swearing. And one night again, I got a little angry because she could be a tough cookie. She was very stubborn, and she wouldn't eat this one night. So I got very angry and I swore, and I knew it upset her. And I said, "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry for swearing, but I said this parenting thing is really tough." And she had 6 kids, and she said, "Yeah, I guess, but I never swore." And I said, "You're right. You're right." So I had to be very careful, but she didn't. She never, when she got mad, she said things like nincompoop, or "I'm fed up," or she actually said "fudgy wudgy" one night in front of my friends.
Oh, yeah.
And they thought she was kidding. And I said, "No, that's my mom."
Yeah. Fudgy wudgy. I got to remember that one.
And my dad didn't swear either, but he seemed to, I think, food came to mind with him. He'd say things like chowderhead, you're full of soup. That was a big one. And get the ham out of here. That was as bad as it got with these guys. So, So I was, I guess, the black sheep of the family with letting those swear
There you
words
go.
pop out.
So give us a kind of an arcing overview of what you found. What did you experience in spending quality time with your mom and learning more about her and give us an overarching of it all.
Okay. Well, first, I think it's rare for a son to take over these duties. It usually falls on the daughters. I have 3 sisters and 2 older brothers, but I had certainly the desire to do it, but I was also able to do it since I had no children, and I could do it. So I made a choice. I said, listen, my mom and I had also a very different relationship. I think with my dad also. I think I was very curious as a kid. And then I asked them questions and got them. They were both, they were depression kids. So they held on to their family secrets and didn't talk about feelings and any of this stuff. I got both of them to open up to me over the years. And it was pretty cool. So I had a good bond with both of them. And so I guess the first thing is you're seeing your mother naked for the first time. I mean, I took over everything. So I had to give her sponge baths. I gave her sponge baths at least twice a day. You're changing diapers. You're getting peed on by your mother. I mean, these are some adjustments you have to make. So it was very tough at first, but I had a job to do. I said, I'm the caregiver. So I have to get over it and get on with it. So I would deal with my emotions and stuff outside of the room. With her, I wanted to be a professional, certainly with some, love and care, but I didn't want that awkwardness to make her feel awkward. And she was good. She was okay with it.
There you go. It's dealing with adult issues and everything they do. I have a sister who has MS, and I got to mention now she's in a care center. But I know that, my mom is always saying to me, and I guess she has some insurance to take care of this, but she always says, I want to die in my home. I want to be in my home. I don't want to be in a hospital. I don't want to be in a hospice care. And evidently she has the insurance to back it up. But that's a big deal for her. And I know my grandmother died in her home. Unfortunately, no one was there, and there might've been a chance we could have gotten her some care, but she was alone. And then, my grandfather technically died in his home. And I think there's something valuable there, where people, in their last few years of their life, being in their home, the place they've called home. And it sounds like your mom's home was the original home for your family. Yeah. And so that's probably even more important as well.
Yeah. Both of my parents died in their bed. I was with both of them, with different siblings, but I was with both of them when they took their last breath. And it's surreal, but it was beautiful. to watch that transition and to know that they knew that we were there to help them through it. And both of them died with very little pain. I mean, after a while, I mean, with Mom, it was a long process. My dad went pretty quick, like your dad. Once hospice was called, he 2 days later he was gone. But he was pretty sharp to the end. My mother seemed to want to go a few weeks before, so she stopped communicating. She would respond to touch and stuff, but I don't think she spoke again. She whispered, "I love you" to me, I think a day before she passed, which was nice. So she still knew I was there. I think that was definitely the way to go. She was Irish, so I played some Irish music, for 5 days. I was with her like 5 days straight through until she passed. So we played Irish music the whole time, which still makes me cry. And I gave her some. She loved coffee ice cream, so I gave her some coffee ice cream a couple of days past. She said she wanted some of that. So.
There you go.
Yeah, it's cool. My dad was telling jokes to the end. Mom had a foot. It was strange because I would usually go out to LA for 1 week. I called it Hell Week. I'd go out and work crazy hours in my business. I had a snack food company called Grandpa Poe's Originals, and it was something a snack food my dad invented when we were kids. And to honor him, my brother and I started this business, and we were in the stores in 1998 and went nationwide. So it was doing very well for a while. But it evolved into a one-man operation, and I was able to design all the equipment. I built the factory where I could handle this on my own. So I would go for Hell Week and be able to make a few months worth of product. But the last time I was there for 2 weeks. And when I came back, my mother's demeanor completely changed. So I knew the end was coming. But she had her right foot kept tapping. And at this point, I had a caregiver who filled in for me because I had some medical issues because of the stress. So she filled in to do the heavy work. So she was there as well. And we just got a kick out of it because Mom was nothing up here, but the foot just kept tapping. And we're like, is she tapping to a song that nobody else hears? Is the heavenly choir calling, or was it just to make us laugh? And it could have been all those things, but it certainly entertained us. We just cracked up, when you should be sad about this person transitioning. It was like, oh my God, what's going on with that foot? And it might've been her way of just saying, hey, this is okay. I want you to smile, and I'm going to be fine. So you should be fine.
There you go. I think the other reason people pass away pretty quickly in a hospice care home is they're not in their home. I think that makes a huge difference too. Yeah.
Yep.
I think it makes a huge difference. And my Mom, it's like really important. I think I've had to swear on like 10 Bibles that she will, if everything is optimal, she'll be able to pass away in her home. And I believe that she should. Yeah. She loves her home. She's had it for 20 or 30 years. And she has every right to do that. And I wouldn't want to die in a, if I was in a hospital and they said, you're probably going to pass away, I'm like, wheel me out to the front so I can die in the fresh air. I don't want to die in a hospital. But I mean, sometimes you don't have a choice. But I think it was great what you did. And it's very hard. Not to do a comparison, your family's a dog, but my dog of 16 years went through hospice care with me. And so for a year and a half, I took care of her, and she was given like 3 days to die. She had anal sac cancer, and I became her hospice care at home, and she lived for actually 2 to 3 years when the doctor said it was only going to be 3 days that she was going to live.
Wow. And it makes a big difference. Yeah.
And so I did something very similar with my pup, who is actually like a child to me. I'm like you, I'm a 55-year-old bachelor. You're 55 when you engage with get your mom care. And it was hard. There was depression. I probably didn't help. I was still drinking at the time. It took its toll on me. It took its toll on me health-wise. It took its toll on me mental-wise. And I didn't realize that caregivers really need to take care of themselves. There's books on this and people you found and authors. You mentioned that you had, it affected your health too.
Yeah. So I think about 2.5 years in, I had, it felt like somebody shot me in the gut. And I was healthy. I mean, I ate healthy. I renovated the house. My mom slept a lot of hours during the day. So I wanted to not only restore her dignity, but the dignity to her surroundings. So this was the house that had been in our family for over 60 years. And so I started renovating it from the base, started with the basement and moved up. So I got a lot of stress relief from banging down walls and hauling junk out and things like that. But and I built a man cave in there. I knew I needed some stress relief, so I had a rowing machine and I had dumbbells and things like that. So I would work out and I would eat well. And again, you think, oh, I can handle this stuff, but it creeps up on you. So one day it felt like I got shot in the stomach, and then that night I had a fever. It was June. And the humidity was probably 90 or something in New Jersey. And I went to bed with pajamas, a heavy blanket with a heater in the bed with me because I was freezing. And it was just crazy. And then the next day I woke up, it seemed like I broke the fever and I was okay. So I waited a day, then I worked out again the next day, and then it came back with a vengeance. So I think it ended up being like 4 days later, I drove myself to the emergency room. As soon as I mentioned, I got a pain in my lower left abdomen, they said, diverticulitis. You're going into CT scan right now. I didn't even know what it was. I didn't know how to pronounce it at the time. And so what I had is, as we get older, it's in your colon, you start to get these things like the appendix. You get these little pockets. And sometimes food or whatever will get caught in those pockets and cause discomfort. With mine, it actually punctured one of those. And it perforated. And so I was infected in my whole, I guess, midsection. And that's what caused the fever. And they said, I was very close because if that got into the bloodstream, I would have been dead.
Yeah.
So that's what the CT scan revealed. So I had to go through emergency surgery. And it was funny because I called my brother when I knew it was serious, and I'm like, who's going to take care of my mother? Because that was my motivation at that point to get better. But then they said, you're going into surgery. And I had an umbilical hernia when I was 25, and it took about a year to recover from that. So now I'm going 55. This is going to be ridiculous.
Yeah.
Actually, I was 57, I think, at the time. So I called my brother, and I told him what's going on. I said, this is serious. We have to find someone to replace me. And all I heard on the other side is, can we swear? Okay. He said, oh, shit. And I wasn't sure if that was his predicament or mine. But it was a valid response to both of ours. So, I went through 3 emergency surgeries. And I asked the doctors, I said, so why did this happen? I said, I'm healthy. I eat healthy. I do this. I don't drink a lot. I don't smoke. And they said, sometimes it's just dumb luck.
Wow.
And apparently, I have to say it had to be the stress related stuff. So, but again, knowing that I wanted to get back to work and take care of my mom, that was my motivation to get out of there. So, the drugs were great, but my mother had a lot of visions, during our journey early on, because she had some dementia, and then later on it was diagnosed she had some Alzheimer's, and on those drugs, boy, I had the same kind of visions in the hospital. So luckily they stopped after I kicked the drugs, but you got to take care of yourself. I was meeting with somebody who is the caregiver's caregiver. And he said that there's probably 30% of the caregivers die before their patient does.
Really? Wow.
So that's how crazy it is. So you really do, you have to watch out and take care of yourself. Even if you think you're the tough guy or the tough gal, take the breaks.
You do. It definitely weighs on you. Weighs on you and wanes on you. So, I had a mortgage company for 20 years. And one of the things I would see is the transfer of wealth of where children would seize a parent's home and sometimes force them into hospice care, retirement homes, not for sometimes the best of purposes. Sometimes it was necessary because of the care that was needed for them. My sister needs 3 three hospice care people to lift. She's not in hospice, but a care center people to lift her and shower her and bathe her. There's just no way to do that really in a home, especially for some of the assistance she needs. And so that's necessary. But there were times where I saw just a seizing of assets really when it came down to it, and throwing mom or dad into the retirement home. What are your thoughts on why it's better to do things, and why you would encourage people to do things the way you guys did things, as opposed to just throwing them in a retirement home and forgetting about them?
Well, financial. I was very lucky because my brother was the financial planner for the family for years, and so he took that all off my plate, which was, I guess, a tremendous. So we didn't have to worry about it. My parents both did pretty well, and with Michael's overseeing their accounts and stuff for probably 30 or more years, they were fine. So we were good on that end, and everybody was treated fairly, and so that didn't enter the picture. But I think overall, it was probably beneficial financially for us to do it and not pay for outside sources and stuff. Definitely some of these nursing homes. My mother was in assisted living years earlier for a few years, and I didn't know because I lived in California, but she really didn't like it. Though she had her own apartment and the social life was great, and she had a dog at the time, so she was able to keep her dog, who was her seventh child and perhaps her favorite child. So I thought she was very happy there. Every time I visited, she had a good time, but she really didn't. She wanted to come home. And so you got, what's one of the main things I'd say that came out of this experience is you have to have empathy. Normally you should have empathy for family members and people you're close to and people you love, but boy, they are still human beings. They're going to be a slower pace, and sometimes she would come up with some very crazy, nonsensical things, but you gotta find the joy in it and laugh at it and things like that. She was a shopaholic, and one day she just says, "Hey, do you have socks?" I said, "Yeah, I have socks." "Where are they?" I said, "They're on my feet." She goes, "Good, because I don't have any extras for you." I said, "Okay, Mom, it's okay." Because she would, if I needed them, she probably would have thought she could get in a car, which she hadn't driven in probably 10, 15 years, and go out and shop and get me some socks, because that's what she would do. Any excuse to go out shopping, she would do it. She was a shopaholic. That was her main vice.
There you go. And she's still mom, so she's still taking care of her son.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say about rest homes and care centers and hospice care is the level of care that I've seen, and my sister has been through, I think, 7 different care centers. The level of care is horrendous is the word I want to use. It's bad. The horror stories I've heard, seen, a lot of the care centers in America used to be individually owned, and they went through this corporatization where all the big corporations bought them all.
Yeah.
And they have thinned out the staffs. They have, which got worse over COVID. They've thinned out the services. It's crazy, some of the things I've seen. And my mom regularly goes up to see my sister. She's her caretaker. And, sometimes, her diapers aren't changed. She's sitting in whatever. She's slumping down in her seat. She has this big, giant, expensive wheelchair she sits in. It's automated, and she'll be slumping, and she can't pick herself back up and pull herself back up because of the MS. And like, no one will check on her, or sometimes they won't feed her. And so I really encourage people to do what you did, where it's just the care can be so much better when you're overseeing what's gone on there. Yeah. One of my friends, they put one of those portable cameras in the room, and their father had rolled off the bed, and he had dementia and he wasn't aware of anything. Yeah. Rolled off the bed. They left him on the floor for 3 days, and they would just come in and care for him, and no one would pick him up off the floor. And he laid there for 3 days, and they caught it on a camera. It was insane.
Yeah.
The stuff they would do. They had one friend had a mother who had dementia. She's like, they come in at night and they steal my jewelry and they go through my drawers and they steal stuff. And they thought, oh, she's just in dementia. So they put a camera in there. Sure enough, there was somebody coming in and doing that. It's crazy. So I think it's just honorable what you guys did. Our parents changed our diapers and cleaned us up and got us through this life. In fact,
for a lot of years.
Yeah. If it wasn't for them, we probably wouldn't have survived either. And so I think it's honorable what you did, but also it's been so life fulfilling. It's hard. It's probably one of the hardest things you'll ever do. It's not hard to watch someone die slowly, and pass slowly. It wears on you. And every day with my puppy, of 16 years, my child, every day would just be like, let's get through today. I don't know if that was your experience, but you're just like, let's get through today. Every day is a brick of gold. Let's just get to tomorrow. Because you don't know. Because today could be the day. And it's hard. It's hard to live that way. And it grinds on you. But I think it's just wonderful what you did and putting this together in a beautiful memoir. You got the photos of your mom and you and stuff. What have we touched on that we want to, tease out to get people to order the book?
I guess I'll tell you some of the funny things because it's not totally sad. I think there's more laughs. I've had, what's so cool about this? Not only is a recording, let's say, family history for my family and stuff, but old friends are coming out of woodwork, especially people from high school who I haven't been in contact for 50 years, people I knew from my hometown. And I've been promoting this thing on Facebook and YouTube. I've been did like 130 1-minute teasers on YouTube that I've been posting for the last year and a half, and then the blog, and we even do the TikTok. We're on all the platforms. It's crazy. But people are coming out, and they would tell stories about my family that I didn't realize. I mean, my parents were very cool, and we had a very popular house in high school because they were fun. They were fun people to be around. And so for hearing these stories and having them share their own stories with their parents, and a lot of them think that, oh, this is great, but there was one of my friends who said, I don't think I can read this. I've been following, but I can't read it yet because my father just passed a month ago. And I said, yes, it's too soon. So wait. A week later, she says, I'm going to New York, flying back to New York from LA. I'm going to take your book with me. And she posted progress on the flight. And she said, I am laughing my butt off on this particular chapter. And the flight attendant's begging me to find out what I'm reading. It's making me laugh so hard.
There you go.
And so, there's a lot of people are saying laughter and tears at the same time, which is just lovely.
There you go. I wouldn't trade, and I'm sure you wouldn't either. I wouldn't trade those hospice years that I took care of my child puppy. I wouldn't trade those for years. And it's so amazing how much we find the richness of life in those moments and the value of it and how important it is.
Yeah. Like with your puppy, obviously you couldn't have a conversation, but the response of the way you held your puppy and whether it was a he or she.
She.
Yeah. I'm sure you made eye contact and those are the near the end. I mean, even when my mom was doing fine, she would there'd be a time where you get really angry or something, and you're not sure. I went through a chapter. So why are you doing this? Was her question, and then I had to start thinking, why am I doing this? What? This is insane. I'm not. I didn't want to be a parent. Now I'm a parent. Why am I doing this? And then then you'd look at her and she'd smile. Or she would give you a witty comeback to a joke or something, or then she loved kisses, so she would pucker up for a kiss, and you're just going, okay, so that's why I'm doing this. Yeah. For those special little moments that you don't expect, and that was all the reward or payback you needed. It was very rewarding, and I wouldn't have traded those moments for the world, and that's why I wanted to record it for other family members who miss those things.
And it's a great example being set too, because, we kind of have this mentality or this culture in this world that we throw away old people. When you're old, they've already thrown me away. I'm only 55. They're like, we don't care anything about what you have to say anymore. But Matthew Fulton, thanks for calling in, Matthew. The aging of my parents makes me want to be close to them every day. I do not want to only see them 3 times a year for the next 5 years. For those of you who've lost people, you don't know what you have until it's gone. And sometimes there are things that are unresolved throughout your life that, you need to sit down. With my father, I knew the time was coming because he was having a lot of problems with strokes. And I was on a Zoom call with him once in Vegas, and he had a stroke right in front of me. In fact, I was the one screaming through the Zoom to the background to get him taken care of. But I sat down with him, and we had a contentious relationship as a father and a son. We didn't always get along. I think it was until 30 when he finally told me he was proud of me. We had a lot of battles. And so I took the time. I realized I had the foresight to realize that I needed to clear all the decks before he left.
Yeah.
And make sure that we squared up even. And so I did that, and I sat down with him, and sadly it was a little too late because he was really starting to kick in the dementia. So sometimes we'd have the same conversations every day, but we squared all the decks, and I asked him, is there anything unresolved with you that we need to square out? And he said, nope. And I said, I think, we talked about some of the things we did, and I apologize for a few things I did, and I think he might have done the same. And but just clearing those decks, cleaning that psychological thing out so that he could pass, or if I pass before him, there was nothing left where we're like, God, I wish I would have had that conversation. Yeah. God, I wish I would have said this.
Those are really, really important, because I heard from a friend recently, again, someone I knew from high school, and she says she can't read the book because her mother died over 20 years ago, and she didn't get to say goodbye. Wow. So she's not ready. And I'm like, it's time to forgive yourself, first of all.
Yeah.
But, it's a shame, because I think, again, with the relationship I had with both of my parents, I had those conversations early on. And I wrote about them too. And I let my dad read a monologue that I wrote that was not very pleasant. And I took a chance because, again, he was a very shy guy, but he didn't have a very good relationship with my younger sister. And my younger sister was my best friend. And I said, you're missing out. This kid is great, and I don't know what you're doing. So the monologue was about that. And I let him read it, and he was just dead quiet after. And I said, oh, crap, what have I done? And then he opened up. And this guy, we talked about everything from his meeting my mother to the honeymoon to everything in his, it was amazing. It was like we became like friends at that point. And it was just beautiful. And even at one point, when he had difficulty in my parents had the typical Catholic marriage, maybe not typical, but it was a lot of tension in the house, but till they were apart. And so he had some things going on with Mom. And so I took him aside one time, and I gave him the sex talk with me coaching him. I said, hey, will you, I opened up, and he opened up, because I didn't know, I don't know what kid talked, but this is the kind of kid I guess I was. And so he was okay with it, but I just asked, I said, were you a kind and giving lover to Mom? And we had that, I won't disclose the answer, but it was good. And I had similar talks with my mom, which I guess normal people don't, but I was curious. And again, like you said, nothing was left off the table. And I think some of the revelations in the book may shock my brothers and sisters, but I have that in the acknowledgement saying, I know that I may have gone too far, but these were important lessons. I think that, again, have those, don't wait for these discussions.
Yeah.
If
these are
really
honest,
uncomfortable, you can't force them. But
these are honest human moments, and we're humans. I mean, and someone is passing away. One of my other dogs that passed away, I didn't talk a lot about my private life on social media, but I had a huge following. I was like 400,000 people on Twitter, and all the things that we have now, and so I kept a little bit of PR. But one night, my oldest first child dog died of a seizure within a half an hour, and so I didn't get to say goodbye. It was just gone. It was over, and it crushed me because I didn't get to say goodbye, and I poured out this whole Facebook post with half a bottle of vodka in me. I was pretty much trying to drink myself to death. And I just poured out my soul onto the page. And I sat there for a half an hour drinking, going, I really don't want to share this with anybody. This is too private. This is too personal. Too much feeling. I don't want to share this. No one's going to give a fuck anyway. They're just going to be like, it's just going to be embarrassing. And so fortunately, I guess I had down enough vodka and I was tired and ready for bed, and I pressed send. And I didn't know the impact of what I did, and probably the impact that you're going to have with your book as well. I didn't realize that by sharing my pain, by telling my story, that there were other people who needed healing, who hadn't, people wrote me the next morning and then over the next coming weeks. They're like, yeah, your story, experiencing you go through the pain of what you went through, realized that I didn't get closure with my dad, or I didn't get closure with my mom or my grandmother, my dog. They're like, you helped me get closure finally. You helped me seal that wound. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, wow, this really helped other people? I thought this was the most selfish moment that I could ever do. And so that's the beauty of a book like yours. It's going to inspire, it's going to help so many people and reach and touch them with their own personal lives as well.
Yeah. I hope. That's
it will. I guarantee it. That's the beautiful part about stories.
Yeah. So I have a baseball story if you want to talk about.
Sure, let's do it.
So my dad and I, and my mom and I guess, never had really a falling out, but my dad and I did. He was a baseball coach. Mm-hmm. And so I was the youngest of the three sons, and I hated practicing. I didn't want to deal with the fundamentals and all that. So I just wanted to get to the fun stuff or play the game. And so that was a big issue. And there's a big chapter in the book inside because I liked, the three of us were left-handers, my brothers and I. So I would play, let's say, in right field, and rarely did anybody hit in right field unless they were a left-hander. So I'd sit out there, and so nothing was going on. So I would take a stick and draw in the dirt pictures. And so the chapter is called, "Is That Your Picasso in the Outfield?" Because my dad, he would come to a game and see his kid, the coach's son, not on his team. I never made his team, by the way. I wasn't good enough. He would, he didn't want to hear that question. Oh, is that your Picasso, Mr. Coach, in the outfield? But one day he showed up and our umpire didn't. And nobody knew he was my dad because he was, I think, embarrassed and he never told people. Whenever he showed up, I always made an error. So he was off in the background, and so somebody said, we need an umpire. So he became the umpire. Mm-hmm. And he called me out on strikes on the game-winning time at the plate. And I was maybe 10 or 11, and it killed me because it was not a strike.
Oh.
He called me out, and we never talked about it. Until 23 years later, I wrote him for his 75th birthday. I didn't know what to get him. He was a difficult guy to buy something for because he was fine with shoes older than me and pants the same age. So I sent him 75 memories for his 75th birthday. Wow. Just a list of memories.
That's cool.
And one of them was this baseball. They weren't all happy. They were good, as he called them. Some were pithy.
You were clearing the decks.
Yeah, but basically, way ahead of time. So, and again, I had no idea what the impact would be. And this was, again, a very quiet, closed man, kept his emotions close to the chest. And I found out through my siblings that this thing just touched him. And he wrote me back. That was his favorite thing. He would typewrite letters. And he wrote back and he said, I remember that incident very clearly.
Wow. The
ball was high and outside, probably not a strike. But I always taught you to never go down without swinging. And he said, I've regretted that call for 20.
You both carried it.
23 years.
You both carried it.
Yeah.
Wow. That
And
is,
that was, I mean, that just that obviously floored me. So I called him right up and said, "Hey, listen, I don't regret. I'm glad that we're talking about it, but I said that incident, as along with the other 74, shaped us in our relationship. So I don't regret any of them.
there you
But
go.
I appreciate his honesty. But I mean, that's amazing? 23 years we both held on to this thing.
That is awesome. Our fan base loves it. You nailed it. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, it helps others and people like your 75 memories thing. Adam Husky coming into the show. I tried to see mine at least 2 times a month. It's hard because they drive a long haul. Yeah, it's tough when they're down the road. But as you mentioned, you never know when it's time. You know, I remember someone told me when I was young, and my dad was my age at the time, working for me. And it was one of my employees, and he was older, and I think he was almost retirement age. He said, "Chris, you're going to go through 2 periods of your life. There's a period of your life where you go to a lot of weddings, and there's a time where you go to a lot of funerals."
Yep.
And I remember feeling the crossover where I'm like, yeah, we're not going to weddings so much anymore. We're going to a lot of funerals. Yep. And people start passing away around you. And, you've got to realize that time is so precious. I remember calling my uncle Randy after my dad passed, and there were stories my dad wouldn't tell us about his life. He was a bit of a PR agent. He was a narcissist. So therein lies some of our issues. But my uncle was on his deathbed. He only had like half his heart working, and they just told him, "Go home, live your life. You're going to go soon. That's it." And so I called him up and I said, "Hey, tell me the stories about what it was like with my dad growing up and, the whole family history." And so he calls me one night at like 11 o'clock and I'm like, "Shouldn't you be sleeping? Cause you need rest." And for 4 hours, he told me like all the stories that my dad had never told us. And I don't know, maybe my dad didn't think they were important, but he like bled it out like a historian. Till like 4 in the morning or 3 in the morning or something. And I kept saying to him, "You need to go to bed. I don't want to kill you." And, but spending these moments with people and, reconciling the history and everything else, I mean, it's just so inspiring and beautiful. And more people need to do it because by the time we get busy with our lives and, my mom's retired, I'm not. So, I got to make a buck during the day. But spending time with them and reconciling these moments, closing out life so that when they're gone, you can say, "Hey, we talked about everything we need to do, and we closed all the business and wiped all the decks, and everyone can be at peace and love and harmony in the end."
Yeah.
There you go.
Don't wait. Yeah. Because a lot of times you go, "Oh, I'll go to the funeral." And you go, that's too late.
Yeah, that's not the time to do it.
Make the phone call, write the letter, do something because, it may even be selfish, but if it's for you, that's great. But you have no idea, when you bared your soul, you have no idea the effect it's going to have on other people.
Yeah. Or the story with your father, with the baseball story. Yeah. I mean, you both carried that for all those years. Don't wait.
I knew I was right.
Oh, well, at least he was great about it, and all that good stuff. So you've given a great example and set a beautiful memoir for your mom and your family's history that I'm sure will inspire and motivate others. And one PSA I would always say is, if you're a caretaker, get help. Read a book, get a psychiatrist, take care of yourself. Because one of the problems is, as a caretaker, you spend so much time helping someone else that you don't take care of yourself, and you can't help other people if you grind yourself down. And so all that good stuff. Final thoughts as we go out and plug for the book and .coms, Mark.
Final thoughts. Okay, so I think my main thing with this, even though with the stress and all this other stuff, and knowing that your mother is not going to be around forever, it's kind of like my motto. I look for the joy. So I tell people, find the joy. So no matter what the circumstances is, I look for any positive thing in it. So even on those most stressful days, I would find something that helped me push forward. Whether it was a smile from mom or a grandchild coming back to the house because the house was now a loving home, welcoming home once again. And so I think, again, find the joy. It's helped me, and it certainly it helps me every day anyway, no matter what the situation is.
There you go. There you go. And the memories that you have are just bricks of gold.
Yep.
The no one can replace those or take them from you. And then hopefully, we all get to pass away in that sort of respectful, sort of honorable way. Thank you very much, Mark, for coming on the show. A heart-touching story and beautiful story and laughter as well. Yep. So these are the joys of being human. Give us your .com. I think I asked for it. I wasn't sure if you gave it there at the end. Well,
if you just Google a cup of tea on the Commode, the website is a cup of tea on the Commode.org. Cup of tea on the Commode. If you Google that, you'll see everything. So there's the Facebook, the LinkedIn, the TikTok, the Pinterest, Instagram, Tumblr. We're all over the place. And the book is on Amazon. It's on a lot of online retailers, but the most popular one, of course, is Amazon. And it's at $3.15 off at Amazon currently.
Oh,
so
there you go. Great deal.
for the paperback, it comes in paperback, ebook, and also large print paperback because a lot of my audience are baby boomers and stuff. So they're trying to help out. And
I'm Gen X. I'm there now.
Yeah, well, there you go. Get that one. It's like 450 pages. It's a bargain.
Oh, wow.
And then I'll be doing the audiobook. Hopefully by holiday time, that'll be out.
There you go. A cup of tea on the Commode. Oh, I was going to ask you, what does that mean? The meaning of that.
Okay, so sometime Mother Nature took its time when I got Mom on the Commode several times a day.
Okay.
And to make it more pleasant, one day I asked her if she wanted her favorite beverage, which was a cup of tea, skim milk, no sugar, and it became a hit. And so that was the cup of tea on the Commode.
Cup of tea on the Commode. I love it. My multitasking adventures of caring for Mom and how I survived to tell the tale. Out May 14th, 2023. Thanks, Mountains, for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, youtube.com/Chris Voss, linkedin.com/Chris Voss, and Chris Voss1 on TikTok. Thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe, and we'll see you guys next time.